And Jesus said to them, pay attention to what you bear, for the measure you give will be the measure you get, and more will be given you. Reverend Whittaker, Mrs. Lucas and committee, Contee officers and members, and in particular the young adults of Contee, and invited guests, our Livingston alumni. My heart is so full to see us so well represented today. It is an honor and a privilege to join you as part of this Livingston College Day observance. When Reverend Whittaker and Mrs. Lucas invited me to be today's guest speaker, I was very delighted to accept and was determined to be here. I always enjoy the opportunity to worship with you here and to fellowship with the Contee family. I feel especially thankful to be here today in spite of my full foot and leg cast and with wheelchair and crutch in tow. As an explanation for the foot and leg cast, I have been offered several scenarios to use, ranging from a skiing accident in the Alps to a frozen turkey dropped on the foot. But better judgment has prevailed, and I will not subject you to either of those choices. But suffice it to say, I am thankful to be here today. As president of the Livingston College Alumni Association, Washington area chapter, I can report that our chapter's focus has been on promoting excellence in education by supporting Washington area students studying at Livingston College. Importantly, over the past 5 years, we have awarded over $100,000 in scholarships and grants to Washington area students at Livingston College who have demonstrated academic excellence. And some of you have been present with us at our spring fundraising event, the Spring Gala. We've had some of you present. By the way, that will be on April 5th this year. And then our other fundraiser is the golf tournament, which Ms. Lucas mentioned, Reverend Whittaker. That will be in July, last Monday in July. So we invite all of you to join us in this effort to provide scholarships and promote excellence in education. So in a concerted way, I very much identify with the theme for today, empowering today's young leaders through educational excellence. This theme speaks to the reality, to the challenges that young adults face today in preparing themselves for the future. This theme is also an echo from the past in this 131st year commemorating the founding of Livingston College. The words of the founder, Joseph Charles Price, spoken those many years ago, are just as relevant today as they were back then on the eve of the 19th century. Dr. Price captured his ideas on paper 25 years after the end of slavery and the Civil War. Influenced by the events of his time proximity to the deprivation of slavery, he saw education and self-sufficiency as the only way to uplift Black Americans. He convincingly argued that nothing in the long history of the treatment of Blacks in America suggested that our uplifting would be accomplished by anyone else except ourselves. Dr. Price's wisdom has not dimmed with time. He was indeed a genius, far ahead of his day, with vision and insight that speaks to issues still relevant to us today. He recognized the necessity of taking responsibility for the intellectual and moral education of our young leaders. These principles and values have weathered the test of time at Livingston College and thrive as the key pillars of the current holistic learning environment at the college. So, as in the decades past, we recognize the continuing mandate to Livingston College and to the AME Zion Church to work to empower today's young leaders through educational excellence. This theme is key to preparing young leaders to achieve their dreams as productive members of today's global society, and here I place particular emphasis on the term global society. We say global society because today's young adults will not only compete for jobs with others here in the local Washington area or the East Coast region or even the United States, but rather will be competing with others worldwide. We live in an information age where the advances in communication and computer technology have made the world a lot smaller as we interact, compete, trade, and outsource jobs across oceans, across nations, across continents. This change in communication and computer technology, this globalization of the world economy has resulted in a fundamental increase in competition for jobs and a demand for excellence as we apply for these jobs. All of this has placed greater emphasis, greater importance on the role that education plays in fostering excellence and in preparing young adults for a vastly more complex, more competitive, more demanding world. Today, education enhances the ability of learners to first access, then assess, adopt, and apply knowledge. Education enhances the ability to think independently, to exercise appropriate judgment, and to collaborate with others to make sense of new situations. Today, the objective of education is no longer simply to convey a body of knowledge, but to teach how to learn, how to problem solve, and how to synthesize the old with the new. In today's world, just being pretty good at what you do is not good enough. That was not the case 47 years ago when I was a young adult graduating from Livingston College, entering the workforce. Many people at that time built homes and raised families and enjoyed comfortable lives on jobs that required no more than a high school diploma, or sometimes less. But that is not the case today, just as the mill workers in North Carolina, where I am from. Most of those jobs have moved offshore to China, to Malaysia, or to India. The numbers are staggering. An estimated 2 million United States manufacturing jobs are expected to be lost overseas by 2015. As an example, how many of you own an iPhone? iPod? iPad? All of these Apple products are now assembled in China. These jobs are no longer available to United States workers with high school degrees. The U.S. jobless rate tells the whole story. In a January 2010 study, the jobless rate stood at 9.7%. Yet for individuals with a bachelor's degree or higher, the jobless rate was substantially less, 4.9%. Conversely, the people without a high school diploma, the jobless rate was noticeably higher, 15.2%. These numbers make the point all too well that we live in a competitive world where empowering yourself through education and training is critical. Excellence through education is the key. Importantly, the educational attainment level required for all jobs continues to rise. The Georgetown University Center on Education and the Workforce estimates that by 2018, nearly 2/3, about 70% of all jobs in the United States will require post-secondary education. In 1973, just 28% of jobs, or less than 1/3, required such instruction. I saw this trend over my 30-year career in government. When I began college in 1962, the norm was that you graduated after 4 years and went directly to work in a chosen profession, and graduate school was seen at the time as a nice to have, but maybe not immediately necessary. This all changed. Now, for most professions, graduate school studies are required in order to remain competitive, in order to excel, in order to demonstrate excellence. Competition for white-collar jobs continues to increase as a new wave of jobs leave U.S. shores, to include jobs in software development, customer service centers, accounting, office support, product development, and other white-collar endeavors. The demand for workers to obtain meaningful credentials has never been more important. America's education system is critical in this effort, and our colleges, our HBCUs, and our Livingston are key to our success in today's challenging world. The success that students and young adults experience in acquiring an education that prepares them, that enables them to achieve their career life goals, starts with how they approach the learning process. Every course, every leadership or practical work experience should be focused on achieving excellence. Your first step, and the most important ones, because they represent decisions that determine fields of study, are of specialization and ultimately career life choices. In order to make these informed decisions, early on, one must answer the self-assessment questions of where am I and where do I want to go? Now this introspection, this reflection, this goal setting is essential to getting students motivated and focused on learning. Too often, these questions are not addressed until the second semester of the sophomore year in college, and after 2 years of often misdirected and perhaps even sometimes academic failure. As with most things in life, the results experienced in education tend to be directly in proportion with the quality and enthusiasm of the effort put forth. Excellence in learning is achieved when students are motivated and thirst for knowledge. Excellence is achieved when students pursue their interests, their passions, their strengths, their dreams. It is achieved when students understand how their course of study prepares them for professional excellence. A broad, empowering, big-picture perspective makes all the difference. Take the example of a story told about a man who walks by a construction site and sees 3 workers pushing a wheelbarrow holding one enormous stone. Out of curiosity, he asks one of the workers what they're doing. What does it look like? The worker answered with a sneer. I'm just hauling bricks. Well, unsatisfied with that answer, the man asked the second worker with the wheelbarrow the same question. And without bothering to look up, the man says, we're putting up walls. Now frustrated, the man tries one last time and goes over to the third person. He says, I say there, can you tell me what you men are doing here? Now, unlike the other 2, this man stops, he puts down his wheelbarrow, he wipes his forehead, and he says with a great big smile, we are building a castle. And it is going to be magnificent. Well, here are 3 different men, all doing the same work, but one says he's just hauling rocks, and one says he's just putting up a wall. But the other one says he is building a castle. Now, this story tells a lot about the attitude. The attitude, the motivation, the commitment that we have to something based on the extent of our view, the extent of our knowledge, the extent of our perspective, our attitude. We must remember, therefore, never to settle for less. We are capable of achieving anything we want. Now, anything we want, with a pervasive level of excellence. We just have to believe it, commit to it, commit to the journey, and do the hard work. When it comes right down to it, bringing out our personal excellence requires us to stop settling. It requires an open mind. It requires a belief that what we want is entirely possible. It requires a willingness to demand nothing less than our very best from ourselves in everything we do. Now, in summary, the Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist Thomas Friedman, in his book, The World is Flat, asserts that economic competition in the new global world will be more equal. Economic competition will also be more intense. We Americans will have to work harder, run faster, and become smarter to make sure we can compete and walk away with our fair share. Let us not, however, underestimate our strengths or the innovation that could explode when we really do connect ourselves to the knowledge and education centers, the colleges, the training centers, and when we each commit ourselves to the level of personal excellence that is and will be required. On such a globally connected earth, the most important attribute we can have is creative imagination. That is the ability to figure out how all these enabling tools can be put together in new and exciting ways to create new products, new communities, and new opportunities. And I'm still quoting, we can flourish in this global world, but it will require the right imagination, the right attitude, and the right motivation. While our lives have been powerfully shaped by this new world, and here I want to speak directly to the young adults. Our country needs you to be forever the generation of optimists, the generation with more dreams than memories. Our country needs you to be the generation that wakes up in the morning and imagines that things can be better through education, innovation, and lifelong learning. Our country needs you to be a generation that not only imagines this, but also acts on that imagination every day.